If you're building a business right now and you feel like you're doing it completely alone, your spouse knows the basics but doesn't really understand what you're going through. Your corporate friends think you've lost your mind, and you're processing every decision, every setback, every why isn't this working conversation with yourself. This episode is for you. I spent 14 months building in silence. Not because I didn't have people who cared about me. I have a wife who supports me, friends who've listened, family who love me, but I couldn't tell any of them what was really happening because I knew, or at least I thought I knew, how they'd react. And the last thing I needed was someone telling me to quit or looking at me like I was going through some kind of crisis. So I carried it all alone, every decision, every failure, every night wondering if it was going to work out. And here's the thing, I was in communities, I was in programs, I was paying for access to rooms, and I was still completely alone. One relationship changed everything. One person in one room produced 15 clients and 75K as a result in 10 days. Not a bigger audience, not a better course, one relationship. And by the end of this, you're going to see why building alone is the most expensive thing that you could possibly be doing and what changed when we found the right people. Now, let me tell you about the person who showed me what the right relationship actually looks like. LD ran a copywriting agency doing $40,000 a month in revenue, but big projects, great clients, but the model required him on everything. He couldn't step away. So he transitioned to growth consulting, and that's where he developed the frameworks that we teach together today. He built his entire business from South America, not as a digital nomad lifestyle flex, but as proof that the model is right. If the model is right, geography doesn't matter. The community, the relationships, the clients, all of it works regardless of where you are because it's built on proximity and trust, not physical presence. And more important than anything else, he's the person who coached me through that shift that produced 75,000 and completely turned my business around. He didn't just teach me a strategy, he was the one relationship that changed my trajectory. LD, take it away.
Yeah, man. And this guy, Ryan, he's awesome in many different ways, but specifically related to this episode, man, he's a relationship builder by nature. So watching him go from being someone who's creating all of this content and not really getting very much traction, and then putting him into the right rooms where he's able to, build relationships and do things like that, and just watching him flourish in real time, it was absolutely awesome. And that was one of the big things that made that 75K happen. So it's it's really really cool being able to just not just coach and like see things work, like yeah, that's great, but also to be able to put everything together in a way where now we can help other people who are just like Ryan, who are just like Agatha and Cindy and Natalie and all of these other people that you guys will get to know. Help other people make the transition into a better way of building their online business, just like these people did. So, and if you're someone who has that real expertise, whether it's 5, 10, 20 years of skills and expertise around something, possibly from corporate or something else, and you've been building alone because you don't trust anyone to kind of hear what's really going on, um, I get it. And if you tried communities, programs, and masterminds, and you still feel like nobody in those rooms has done what you're trying to do with the constraints that you actually have, which is the key part, I totally get that as well. But here's what I want you to think about. Imagine having one person where you can say everything, process everything, and that person not only gets it, but they can actually help you move things forward. That's what changed everything for myself, for Ryan, and that's what we're going to be talking to you about as well, because it is definitely a dynamic that can help you change things as well. So I'm super excited about today's episode, man.
Well, speaking of excitement, you said something to me that hit totally differently. You said that the most isolated entrepreneurs aren't the ones without a support system, but they're the ones who have people who love them and still can't tell any of them what's really happening. So that's actually not exciting. So I don't know why I said that. But LD, if you could break that down for us.
Maybe breaking it down would be the exciting part,
I
right?
think I was just excited to read it.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, yeah, man. And because I've been in so many different businesses and industries over the last 12 years, like I totally get it. Like, you know, even if we just look at, simply put, going from the military for 12 years to full-time entrepreneurship. Like there's something to be said about, there's a big difference there, right? The camaraderie that you have around the things related to the military is going to be totally different when you're the person who can't hang out after work anymore because you have to go put, 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. towards your business, right? You start to drift away from people. And even if some people are happy for you in the beginning, everyone thinks that you're crazy. And that's just like in corporate. Like it's not different for, too much of anyone else, man. So I think it's that. But um here's what I ultimately know is that, like, when you look at it all, we used to think that the problem was just not having enough people around us or not having like the right people around us. That's not necessarily the problem. The problem is you have people who love you and you still can't tell them because you don't want them to know about what's really going on. Because honestly, things aren't moving as fast as you probably wanted them to. You aren't at that place where the current level of your business equals the status that you previously had in your corporate career or in your military career or in whatever it is you were doing previous of this, right? And you're not alone because you lack a support system overall. You're alone because you feel like you can't be honest with the support system that you have. And for some people, I'll be honest, you can't, right? Like I get it. And for others, you could, but you're just not at that place yet to kind of see it. And hopefully this episode will really, really help to kind of bring that out for you, right? So then from that point, you go looking for a room, a community, a mastermind, a Facebook group, a program, and you evaluate it all wrong. And it's not from a place of stupidity. It's literally just ignorance. Like we've all been there. You don't know what you don't know. And again, this episode, I'm super excited about being able to help with some of those evaluation criteria, right? But you're looking at content. Oh my God, their marketing is amazing. The curriculum seems like everything I need. The coach's name and how many followers they have and the price point. It's like, man, well, this is going to be, $8,000. Like it's got to be the thing that's going to get me there because they wouldn't charge 8,000 if there wasn't some massive ROI on the other side. And it all makes sense. But here's what we discovered. There are only two things that truly, truly matter. And honestly, it's there's two big things, but there's one more, and I'll kind of add it in there. Number one is proximity. How close can you get to the person whose story and methodology sold you on joining? You bought into their vision. If you can't access them, what did you pay for? You pay for videos in a classroom, right? And you're hoping that these videos break everything down to where not only it's easy to understand, but it doesn't take you 50 hours of consumption in order to actually get there. And can you actually reach the people who got results? The people who were in those testimonials, in the reviews, in the video testimonials that you looked at before you made the decision to invest in the program. If you ask to talk to them today, you might not ever hear back because a lot of times that's accumulation of reviews and testimonials over a significant amount of time. And me being someone who's seen both sides of it, there are certain people in companies that they gave a testimonial, but if you ask them 90 days later, they would probably, say, hey, can you take my testimonial down? Right? Because things might have worked just enough to get them to leave a testimonial, but then, nothing else worked. So number two is member quality and buying readiness, right? So in this community or mentorship that you're getting into, are there other people in this room pre-vetted, motivated, and actively spending money on problems you can help with? See, you can trade one access for the other, right? So an example is Russell Brunson. Russell Brunson. For me, he had a one funnel away challenge, right? And I had zero proximity to Russell Brunson, right? He's this super big guy. He ran this challenge. It was $100 for 30 days, but there were 3,000 people, 3,000 new people every week that were joining this. And I was a budding copywriter, right? And not only were they joining, but Russell was teaching them the concept of who, not how. Who can do this for you instead of learning how to go do something? And he was telling them, hey, there's a marketplace right over here. Go in there and find a copywriter if you're struggling with writing hooks. And so you have 3,000 people per week being told by the person that sold them to go buy stuff in here, go buy services in here. Can you see how, even if I don't have proximity to Russell Brunson, like there's the member quality is pretty decent overall, and their buying readiness is, peak level. Like these are hot situations. So that's the framework, and we're going to be breaking that down for both, man. So Ryan, when you heard that framework, proximity and member quality, when you were evaluating rooms during those, not the 14 months, but like the last 3 months leading up to doing 75K in 10 days, like what were you actually looking at?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, that framework that you just teed up, that would have saved me a year easily, because here's what I was actually doing in that time. I was evaluating every community like I'd evaluate a product in my former role at Verizon: features, curriculum, price point. On paper, some of those programs looked absolutely amazing, like the solution to every problem. But the thing that I never looked at, and the thing that nobody told me to look at, was who else was in the room. Not the coach's name, not the modules, the other people. And meanwhile, I was holding everything that was going on in. Every evening, I'd want to unload on my wife about what wasn't working, but most of the time I didn't, or at least not to the full extent or full weight of it, because it felt like adding to a problem that she couldn't solve. Like, she knew the results, she didn't know what it was doing to me internally, and I'd already decided that nobody else in my life would understand. Um, two things changed at the same time. So you, who became my coach, you asked me some questions that helped me see what I actually needed to deploy, instead of what I was trying with no success before that. And completely separately, but coincidentally at the same time, I'd gotten curious about AI, and I'd stumbled into a community run by a guy named Jonathan Mast. And I didn't join that room to get clients. I joined because I was genuinely curious. I mean, I'm a massive nerd, and I've always been an early adopter of technology, but I was so burnt out from my corporate career, just where I was, that like, I didn't even care about the things that I used to be passionate about in my life. So I was a late adopter, in the grand scheme of things, or at least relatively speaking for me, with AI. Um, but that room, Jonathan's community, and the one relationship inside of it, is what ultimately produced the 15 clients and 75K. And you gave me the lens. The community gave me the room. And again, one person in that room gave me the partnership that changed everything.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely awesome stuff. So, um, you know, we're gonna roll into this reality right here, because we can talk about all of the things that you just kind of mentioned as like the lagging results, but the leading input is having this understanding. You're not alone because you lack people. You're alone because you can't necessarily tell anyone. People normally look at this as like the fastest way to succeed is figure it out independently. And even with that, it's like people just don't want to be embarrassed. That's more of what it comes down to than anything else. It's like, when people think about needing a community, it's like, well, once I get a little bit further along, then I'll feel more comfortable being in that community. And we believe that too, and it costs us quite a bit. And you can even relate this to the gym. Like, I know that this is personal. These are personal thoughts that I've had about going to the gym. Me being one time someone who's like this athlete playing basketball overseas in the military, blah, 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 all of this stuff. And I would work out in the gym in my building, even if it was a crappy gym, for a few weeks before I would go get a gym membership, because I wouldn't want to show up to this super fancy gym, just super out of shape, struggle bussing. You know what I mean? And so it's not just in business, but it's in other areas of life. And that's like a super transparent moment for me, because like you literally watch me work out in gyms in little like little cardboard box gyms inside of these condos. And yeah, man. So um when you look at the real problem, it's not that you haven't found the right community. It's that you haven't been it it's that you've been a consumer and not an actual contributor. So it's not that you haven't found the right community, is that you've been a consumer and not a contributor. And that's one thing that, dude, you can teach a master class on that. And we'll obviously get to it down the line. But like, you are so good at contributing into small groups, large groups. Like, you're just, I've always seen you as someone who's willing to just put themselves out there. Hey, we're all working on the same thing. Well, we can work on mine in front of everyone else. I don't mind being embarrassed by how lackluster everything is. So shout out to you on that, man. Like, for most
Thank
people,
you.
they scroll, they watch. You're welcome. They scroll, they watch, they absorb, but they don't really show up. They show up on camera. Sometimes they don't even show up on camera. They show up to the Zoom calls and stuff. But like, true showing up is admitting that you actually need help, right? And for me, showing up in the gym, looking like a bag of donuts is like the fact that I needed to be around other people who were, much further along in their fitness journey to be that reminder of I can get back there. You know what I mean? So for someone with like 15 years of credibility, that feels like a massive step backwards, right? So the rooms that produce results aren't the ones you passively observe. They're the ones when you or they're the ones where you show up, add genuine value, and build real relationships. But you can't build a relationship being just someone who's in the middle, in the flush of everything. Like, when I was in the military, there were literally people that their number one goal in the military was just always be right in the middle, never be too far behind, never get too far ahead, just be right in the middle and skate through so that they would be unscathed. And in our flight at that time, our drill instructor, he loved picking those people out and just making them do push-ups until he forgot that they were doing push-ups. Like, it was music to my ears. Anyway, Ryan's obviously proof. We all know it. 75K, 15 clients in 10 days from one right room, one strategic partnership, and just his ability to lean into building those relationships, man. So you can almost look at it like being in a room versus being in a room, right? You can have 5 communities that you're in, 5 different Facebook groups. And it's like, but if you rarely go to any of them, you could just choose one of them and just show up consistently, and you're going to get more of an ROI from that than you would from anything else. And even when you look at, when Ryan did that 75K, when you look at the people who took him up on his accelerator offer, when you look at the data, everyone progressed until it got to the point of like certain things related to like, oh, now they need to go find people for their offers and do this and do that. And obviously Ryan, put everything together in a way to be able to help them get over that hump, but that friction point was still there overall. So Ryan, let me know this, man. Before we started working together, who were you processing your business decisions with, and what did that look like overall, man?
Yeah, the honest answer and almost an embarrassing answer is that it was mostly myself. I don't say that for sympathy. I say it because I think a lot of people watching this are doing the exact same thing, and you don't realize how much it's costing you. My wife knew what was going on with the business. She knew the results or lack thereof, but I couldn't fully open up about what it was actually doing to me. The frustration of pouring hours into content that went nowhere, the feeling of doing everything that the programs, the gurus, everybody told me to do and having nothing to show for it. Telling her all of that felt like pouring salt in an open wound. And she was already watching me grind. She didn't need to know the full picture of how much it was breaking me down. And everybody else in my life, I kept them at arm's length. Friends from corporate, I knew what they'd say. Family, I knew how they'd look at me. I was determined to make this work. And the last thing that I wanted was somebody, or really the thing I was refused to listen to was someone trying to tell me to quit or looking at me like I was in the middle of some midlife crisis. So I was in communities, I was paying for programs, I had access to rooms, but I was still processing every major decision alone because none of those rooms had someone who actually had walked the path that I was trying to walk with the constraints that I was personally dealing with. What broke that pattern was two things that happened almost simultaneously. It was LD becoming my coach and asking me the right questions about my 20 years of Verizon, the skills I was ignoring. That was the strategic shift, but at the same time, it completely organically, it's the community I mentioned before when I got curious about AI and fell into Jonathan's group, AI for Entrepreneurs. So I didn't join that group to network. I didn't join it to get clients. I just showed up with genuine curiosity. I asked questions and I contributed where I could. And that's what flipped everything. It was in while I was inside of that community, just being present and genuine. I met a guy named Clay who he became my first real client for my accelerator program. And then Shannon, who was referred by Clay, and Shannon referred four more people. And eventually, I called Jonathan with an idea for a collaboration, a joint training. And that was the relationship. That was the partnership that produced the 15 clients and 75K in 10 days. So, like, you've heard me talk a lot in our episodes about, one client from the 500 pieces of content. Um, and that's strictly talking about the clients that came from the content. But then you talk about relationships before I even really got fully immersed in the strategy. And that's already six clients that came from literally speaking up in one conversation, genuinely just trying to help somebody. I had no intention of trying to sell Clay anything because I didn't have anything to sell him at that point. um, so LD, you shortened my runway by years, and you gave me the framework, the alignment lens, the ability to see what I had right in front of me. And then Jonathan's community was where I deployed it. And both of those relationships equally mattered in completely different ways. And neither one would have happened if I'd stayed in my own head processing alone.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. And that's a really, really great way to break that down, bro.
Thank you. And I think it's a good
You're welcome.
segue into asking you this. When someone comes to you and they're clearly processing everything through their spouse, what do you see happening in that relationship that they can't see?
Um, you know, I'll tell you this. A lot of times they can see it because by the time they make the decision to like invest into coaching, they especially by the time they get to me, they have already kind of made bigger box investments that didn't really give them any proximity to anyone who could really get them over that hump. So their their spouse is usually off in the background just kind of doing their own thing. They're not excited about this anymore in any way, shape, or form. So and whenever we're on video calls, like I look to take note of, it's just the overall temperament because I've also been on coaching calls where the spouse is like loves the business, loves the idea, and usually there's been some level of results that have come or it's newer to them so they haven't had to deal with an extended period of the lack of results overall. So I think that um for me when it's coaching, like I've seen people when they know that like their spouse isn't really excited about investing more time and money and sacrificing more for this, but one really good way of turning it around is having them take the headphones off, having them like on our coaching calls just let me talk to the room and not just to you, because at that point, they're going to hear me telling you all the right things. And if you don't execute, it's an indirect way of putting accountability on you because now she or he is going to ask you about all the things that crazy high energy coach dude that you're working with, he said this, like I've seen it 10 times. And over time they start to show up on the calls. Hey, LD, how's it going? Oh, it's going good. Has he been doing what he needed to be doing? I'll let him tell you, right? And it's these little things, and what you'll find is that it's a very roundabout way of doing it, but it in them making progress. I'm able to kind of in my own way bring them closer together to get back to a quality place of being able to make progress, because when people are mad or when people don't like something, they don't care to continue to make space for you to make progress. They'll just say screw it, you're already losing, right? So it's that. And I say all of that because no one wants a loser. They didn't get with you because you were a loser in the beginning. So it's like they want to see you do well. They believe that you can do well. Even if they might not understand it, they genuinely believe that you can do well. It's just about getting within proximity of someone or a community or other people that can pull out and help you pull out the other parts of it that really, really make that put you on a trajectory that is pleasant. That's I think that that's probably the easiest way to say that. And let's go ahead and jump into the first Reddit story about all of this stuff, man.
All right. The first Reddit story today is titled Stopped sharing my projects with my wife after years of failed ideas." This person says he's been working 12 plus hours a day for 5 years on 10 different startup ideas. His wife just responded to his latest pitch with "Let us breathe your projects. We know none of them will work." And so he stopped talking to her about the business entirely. What makes it interesting is that he reveals his wife actually has got a degree to support him. So it wasn't an unsupportive spouse, it was a deeply supportive spouse who has run out of emotional bandwidth. And he is also a freelance consultant whose clients, quote, truly appreciate the value. He has market validation, he just can't see it.
Yeah. Um, you know, with this 5 years, 10 plus ideas, 12-hour days, like that's not a recipe for anything positive as far as like, you know what I mean? Like think about the kind of spouse you would need to just still be supportive after all of that. You know what I mean? And it's not like that person just kind of sat back and watched it happen and they didn't say anything. Like they've had conversations about it. But 5 years straight, yeah. So I totally, totally get it. I think that th- the biggest thing in this scenario is understanding that he has clients that appreciate the value, and I'd want to look at ways of packaging that value in ways where we'd be able to put them on a trajectory of, a minimum of 20K a month and 20 hours a week or less, because at that 20K a month and at those 20 hours a week, guess what he gets to do more of now? Hey, honey, I booked us reservations on Friday. Wear this. I always loved you in this. That's a totally different conversation of, hey, honey, I'm about to go spend $10,000 on another business endeavor, right? Like, hey, honey, are you free for spring break or 2 weeks after spring break? Because I want to take us on a cruise, right? Like, this is all common sense, but it really comes down to fixing the things that can actually be fixed. And one of the first things is like, imagine being able to bring this person up live right now on this live stream. He would now be in proximity to two people who are further along in this than he is, and he would be able to get highly valuable information to be able to position him on a better trajectory than what he currently is on. That's not only going to help one life area, but it's going to help all 5 life areas that are the lagging result areas overall. So it's that, man. What do you have, Ryan?
Yeah, I think what stood out to me a lot with this one is more than 10 ideas in the course of 5 years. So that's at least two ideas, two concepts. I mean, they're just calling them ideas too. So it's like not even necessarily full blown, fully vetted or fully executed business strategies in 12 hours a day. So it sounds a lot to me like shiny object syndrome and context switching and just, a whole lot of the wrong things. And it's it's difficult for, I think, any it would be difficult for any spouse to stand by and see that. Like, I mean, you mentioned like the type of person who could continue to support someone through that, like that would just be pure ignorance or just like blind unwavering support, which I don't think either are symptoms of a healthy relationship. So yeah, I agree. I think that like being in proximity, whether it's you and I or anybody who's been there and done it, like if you've tried that many things over that period of time, you need to try a different approach. And I'm willing to bet that adjacent audiences and relationships, like those are things that he never tried because if you get, let's just say, if we split up the ventures over the time equally, like if you're 6 months into something, and I know this, I can say it because I've lived it. If you're 6 months into something and you have zero traction, then it's not time to switch things per se, but unless it's the wrong thing, but it's definitely time to try generating revenue in a different way. And through relationships is always going to be the shortest path to accomplishing that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. And speaking of, Jim Rohn had, you know, a talk that he did. He talked about you're the average of those five people. And Jim Rohn was one of my favorite personal development coaches and mentors and stuff. And the logic around it, because I know that it's a highly used kind of analogy, but I want you to look at it like this: if four of your five people that are kind of in your circle are like an exhausted spouse, confused corporate friends, worried family, and an algorithm, right? Like your average is literally dragging you backwards. But I want you to understand that it's not about replacing those people, right? It's about adding at least one person that shifts that average, right? Like for me, I can, you got Taylor, Randy, Wanda, Tony. Like I can just name people off the top of my head that I have really good friends in the military. And I got around one of these people and then another and then another, and my entire trajectory changed, and that turned into traveling to over 100 countries, but finding out that I have this interest in language learning and learning multiple languages and living in places where no one speaks English and you just have to make it work, right? So it's that, man. It's awesome, awesome stuff. When it comes down to time and money, a lot of people, they've been buying rooms when they really should have been evaluating them before they actually made the investment, and evaluating them with different criteria overall. So normally people say, the priorities are all about building the business first and then the community later once I have more to show. Um, and then when they did decide to like invest, they evaluated it like a product purchase, like we kind of talked about earlier. How is the content? Is the curriculum good? Do I like the coach? And is the price point kind of within what I'm looking to spend? Right? Okay, cool. But what they never evaluated is who else is really in that room. Not, oh, is this the cool kids room, or are these people like kind of where I am more or less? But it's looking at it from a different lens. So here's the overall truth: joining the right pay community is the highest ROI investment you can have, because it also gives you access to rooms of pre-qualified people who are predisposed to trust you because you made a similar investment to them. Just like if you have an Irish person in Cambodia, what do you think? What are the odds that if he runs into another Irish person, even if they have totally different personality types, have totally different likes and beliefs, it doesn't matter. They're still going to exchange contact info and they're still going to hang out because they have that common thread thing. Just like when, well, I'm not even going to use that example, but just know that with me traveling all over, there are, Pacific Islander and Asian communities all over the world. If you go to San Diego, anywhere in California, dude, some of the best Asian food is in California because like they have massive communities and organizations there and they're thriving, right? So that's it's not about business, but it's an example that translates into business because these people are very similar and they are able to help each other. It turns into something that is awesome, man. So Remember, I talked about the two axes. Number one, again, it's proximity. And there's two layers to that. The first is the leader. You bought into their story and their methodology. Like, and that's why proximity to them actually matters. And then the people who have gotten results that have come before you, can you actually reach them? Or have they ridden off into the sunset, or they moved on to another community or something like that? Or is this community so good that these people want to pay it forward inside of this community? Just always remember that testimonials are snapshots, and a lot of those people, they likely have moved on for most high ticket companies, right? And because they moved on, they're going to see your message on school, Facebook, Instagram, wherever, and they might not respond to it because, again, they've moved on. Number two is going to be member quality. And again, it's about those pre-vetted, motivated, and these people are actively spending money on problems that you can actually solve, right? This is one of the biggest variables that most people ignore 100%. So when you have a framework that helps you to ensure that you're evaluating communities in a quality way, then it's going to stop you from stacking programs hoping that the right person is somewhere in there. It puts you in a position to just look at quality first, and over time you can get to the point of building out quantity as well, because you're not just a one trick pony. Like for me, I can join military communities, I can join basketball communities, I can join language learning communities, I can join travel communities, but it was over time. This is not like I can just do this right now. It's like over time overall. So Ryan, man, a lot of people watching this are in, 3, 4, 5, 10 paid communities right now. You were in programs too, and I know that you have like a special angle of story around this, man. What's the difference between paying for access to a room and actually finding the right person in that room?
The difference is what you're actually evaluating. And for most of those 14 months, I was evaluating the wrong thing. I'd look at the program the same way I'd evaluate a product of Verizon: features, curriculum, what's the deliverable, what's the price, and though by those metrics, some of the rooms I was paying for, they looked great, and they had good content, they had solid frameworks, and they had professional production. But none of that really mattered, as you were just explaining, because I was buying information when when what I actually needed was a person, and specifically one person who could look at my situation, see what I couldn't see, and tell me what to do, what to do that I already, what to do with what I already had inside of me. So
Yeah.
you were that person on the coaching side. You didn't hand me a new playbook. You just asked me questions about my career that I'd never thought to ask myself. That not something that you typically get from a curriculum, something that you get from a relationship with someone who's done that type of work. So, but here's the part that a lot of people miss: the community that actually produced the revenue wasn't one I joined strategically. I've said it multiple times already. I found Jonathan's AI community because I was genuinely curious about AI, and I just showed up and contributed. And I mentioned this before, like I didn't even try to sell anybody anything. Clay actually reached out to me, and Shannon came from a referral from Clay. And um, when I proposed the collaboration with Jonathan, he said yes because we had already built trust. And a lot of that trust came from the way that I showed up in his community and the way that I tried to help people, and just, was genuinely myself. I wasn't showing up there um, emanating that vibe that I'm just trying to sell people stuff. So when I see people stacking 3, 4, or 5 paid communities, I get it because I did the same thing. But every program I evaluated on content and curriculum gave me basically nothing. The community I joined out of genuine curiosity, where I showed up as a real person, is the one that changed my life. And so you can't evaluate your way into that. You just have to show up for it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. And great way to break that down, because I think that sometimes people find themselves trying to oversimplify things like this, and they're like, oh, so I just need to go join a bunch of communities and just hunt for new clients. That's not what we're saying at all.
Nope, not at all. And so it's actually a good segue into asking you this. You've seen people invest thousands in communities that didn't move the needle in any meaningful way. So what separates a room worth paying for one that's just an expensive extension of social media?
Yeah, I think that when it comes down to it, there is an accountability component. There's a forcing function and an accountability component, because I'm a firm believer that if someone came from a corporate career, 90% of aspiring entrepreneurs need to be micromanaged in order for them to create a full-time income online. 90%. And I will die on that hill for sure, because they're leaving structure and they're coming into this place where they don't really need to have that. The other thing I would say is, before they join, they look inward and say, what do I actually need? Right? Like, oh, it doesn't matter what game you want to play. If you want to go play affiliate MRR and play the traffic game, fine. Especially with AI, like it makes it a lot easier. It's going to be a longer game if that's not what you're aligned with. But even if you go play the game, if you join the right community, you're going to be able to see some level of progress. But if you look inward and you realize, man, I don't want to play the traffic game. I'd love to go and play a game where I can leverage my skills and expertise and my overall competitive advantage. And you go find a community or a program that aligns with that, with helping you to bring those things out, helping you to really, really monetize that. That is going to have you move the needle 10x compared to the person who's just looking to go play some level of a traffic game, man. So it's super, super important to really understand that, man. And let's go ahead and jump into the next Reddit story overall, brother.
Yep. So this one is called "My Experience with Stacy Bowman's 200K Coaching Program." This one is a business coach making over 400,000 a year. He spent 43,000 total on a coaching program, 25,000 to join, plus another 18,000 on events and prepayments for the next round. Uh, got placed in the top tier income bracket and still came away feeling like quote, joined a sorority that I didn't really belong in. So the program was pure thought work, no strategic content. Group calls had too many people, so she rarely got to speak. And when she tried to leave, they refused to refund 15K for reasons that never happened, or for sessions that never happened. When she complained, they tried to upsell her to the $50,000 tier.
Bingo. And this literally plays off of what I was just talking about, because I want everyone to know, and I know that the Liftoff Lab is our baby, and like we've structured it to be highly helpful out of the gate, and to have proximity, and on a weekly basis have someone that you can actually bump ideas with and get that overall clarity from. But there are other programs and communities out there where you don't need to be at their 50K top tier inner circle to be able to have the level of proximity that you actually need. That is a dying model. It's still out there, but it's a dying model, because right now, more than anything, implementation matters way more than just proximity or just access. So I think that that is super, super important. I love the fact that like she's not naive. I also love that, she's cranking. Right, for 400K a year, good on you. It's not often that we see Reddit stories where like people are cranking cash and things are really, really working out for them. So, shout out to that person. But I think that when you look at that, it's like someone like that, if they're at that level, they don't need a lot. They just need minor tweaks as they continue to scale operations. And then they also need someone there to have that conversation about like how much is enough? How much is too much? Do you want this to be lifestyle boutique, or is this something that you want to scale to the moon and you want to be known as the category king or queen in all of this? Because if you're at 15 hours a week and you're doing that same 400,000 a year, are we complaining about that, or where are we, right? And I've had these conversations with people, and I talk them out of like basically messing up their own good situation because they wanted to go for it because they paid for some high level mastermind conference that told them, hey, well, you need to go shoot for more, even though they were happy right where they were because they were able to not only make enough money, but they made more than enough to be able to do the philanthropic things that they wanted to do, which is where they really wanted to put their time at in the first place, man. So I know I kind of got a little bit away from it, but what's your overall take on this one, brother?
No, I think you nailed it. I agree with everything you said. I mean, this just more than anything else, it, it it absolutely didn't feel like the right fit for what this person needed, and I am having a hard time imagining anybody that's at that 400K mark that just needs like to show up in a program that's rah rah. Because, like you said, they already are doing a lot of the right things, and they're just looking for either the answer to that next level unlock or the way to scale or simplify, because a lot of times when you get to that level, it's probably or there's a high likelihood that it's consuming every other part of your life, like we've talked about in this episode and in recent episodes. So that's the unfortunate thing, is that there are programs out there that paint this amazing picture, and then once you get inside of them, you realize that it's not it's not the picture that they painted. I mean, that's one possibility. The other thing is it wasn't the right thing for you. So, but like you said, it's a dying model, and I would argue that we're bringing a program to the table that is bringing easily 25 to 50K in value for a fraction of that price, right? Because we're in it to help people. We want to lift people up. We want to show people how to get to where we are, and show them that it doesn't take that sort of financial sacrifice in order to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. And if you're listening to this and like, hey, I've kind of checked out a couple of other episodes and it's like, hey, what's this liftoff lab thing? Like we are, I would say, moments, inches away from like putting out the actual information about it. But if you want to be one of the first to know, the link to get on the wait list is in the description. If you want to kind of move towards having more clarity around certain things with your business or the idea overall, there's also a quiz in the description. It takes 2 to 3 minutes. It's going to get you pointed in the right direction, and you'll also be able to get on the wait list as well. So Reed Hoffman, big LinkedIn guy, he said, if you're not embarrassed by the first version that you create, then you basically launch too late, right? And I would say that the same applies to communities. Like waiting until you're ready to show up equals missing the window. And it goes back to me talking about the gym. I'm so grateful that I decided to stop waiting and just go, because the gym that I go to now, they have the sled, and I do a lot of like functional mobility stuff, and it has, the gains are real. I'll put it to you like that. So a lot of that was just in my head. The gains are real, and I'm having a blast with that. Ryan, I don't want to say Ryan waited 14 months because like you don't know what you don't know. I can say he probably waited about 6 months because we had talked about adjacent audiences and strategic partnerships and stuff, but it was just in passing and ask me anything calls. And I touched on it doing some of our coaching calls. But when he reached that point where he was open to something different, he definitely took advantage of it. So that brings us to the final piece. And it's, you know, I would say finding the room is one thing, knowing what to do in the room is something else, man. And again, like I feel super confident in this area, but I love how Ryan's for me, Ryan's like the people's champ. Like I can show you what I do in rooms and it is helpful, and I showed Ryan, and but he really carved out his own lane of being able to do these things. And obviously, as you can see, like I'm crazy kind of all over the place, and Ryan's like super chill, right? So it's like I attract energy and eyeballs really easily because like I'm a high energy person. But for him, he was just really, really good at building relationships. So I'm super excited about getting his perspective in this in this final part. So expect the wild card, Ryan. I'm telling you about it right now, man. So again, it's not the room, it's what you do when you're in it. Most people will grow their personal brand first, get followers, build credibility, and then people will start to connect with them. And what you'll find out is that the best way to build relationships that produces clients is showing up in the right rooms as a genuine contributor. Lead with value, let trust do the selling overall. You don't need followers, you don't need relationships. The belief that kept us stuck the longest is joining another community won't necessarily help. They're all the same. And I would say for me, I didn't see it that way, but I know that other people do, especially if it's a paid community, right? Now, I get that, but the right community isn't a discussion group. It's not some Reddit thread or something like that. It's a true accountability engine, right? The difference between communities that didn't work and the one that changed everything was the forcing mechanism. Daily calls, weekly sprints, structured accountability that converts memberships into actual results. And I think that this is super, super important. And like, if we could sum this entire part up, because like maybe some people are like me, some people are like Ryan. There's a book out there. It's called The Go Giver. You can look it up. It's about, I think it's like Bob Berg or Rob Berg or something like that. My apologies for not knowing right off the top of my head, but such a great book. And when you can be someone who shows up as a go giver in your own way, that is where you really, really unlock things. But specifically for you, Ryan, I want to ask you, like, how did you know I was the right person to build with, as far as like building a community that would actually be of help to other people? Like, what did you see that told you this was the partnership worth going all in on, brother?
Yeah, I didn't know at first, and I think that's the important thing to say, because the way that we tell the story now, it sounds clean and obvious. Like I found LD and everything clicked, but in the beginning, I was just a guy who needed help, and LD was a coach who'd been who had been assigned to me when the initial coach in the program I joined left. And what I noticed early on was that LD wasn't trying to sell me another system. At first I was like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Because he wasn't talking about anything that had anything to do with the curriculum in the program. Um, and it was the same as every other program that I'd been in. It had a playbook: do this, post that, follow this. And LD didn't do that. He asked questions, and not just surface level questions, but getting to the actual things that mattered. And I'd start describing the product strategy work, the partnerships, the operational design, the things that I had done in my career, and he'd say like, "Why aren't you doing that?" And that was the first signal. He was more interested in what I had already accomplished than in what he could teach me, and that's rare. I think most coaches are selling their framework. LD was trying to uncover mine through the coaching. And the second thing was that he'd actually done it, not theoretically, in real life multiple times across different industries. He left the Air Force, replaced his income, built across 5 different verticals. So when he talked about alignment and finding the right container for your skills, it wasn't something that he just read in a book. He'd lived every single version of what he was talking about. But the moment that I knew that this was different, the moment that it went from this is a good coach to this might be the person that I want to build something with, was when I saw how he thought about my trajectory. He wasn't just helping me get my next client, but actually helping me connect dots that I couldn't see. He saw how the work I was doing with my accelerator clients, the AI community, the content system, the frameworks, how all of those pieces fit together into something bigger than any one of them individually. And I was heads down trying to survive the week. He was mapping out the next 2 years. So the thing that sealed the deal, that sealed it, is our skills are genuinely complementary. You bring the alignment frameworks, the coaching methodology, the creative and strategic instincts. I bring the systems, the operations, the product architecture, and the technical execution. So literally neither of one of us could build Liftoff Lab alone. And I think that we both recognize that overlap between what we what each of us brought, and that we weren't competing, and we were, we could communicate. So how did I know? I didn't, not all at once. It kind of revealed itself over time through the work. And through the questions that were asked, and through how you saw my situation when I couldn't. So through the way that our skills locked together, and once we started building, it felt like less like a decision and more like something that became obvious the further that we moved through it. But I want to turn the question back on you, and I want to know how did you know that I was the right person to build something with? Like what did you see that told you that I was the partner worth going all in on something with?
Yeah. Yeah, I got you. And dude, I don't have a lot of words on this one. Like I can do this in like caveman talk right now. So first and foremost, Ryan's a machine. Like he is an absolute machine. You tell him to go do something, and even if it's uncomfortable, he's gonna go do it, and he'll come back with his eye twitching and stuff like that, and he'll be like, "I did it," right? So someone who is willing to run through a brick wall, like that's always good. The next thing is, him having a family and having all of the things that go on associated with that, and him still being able to show up and like actually play the game. Like he's in the game. He's not just showing up on Zoom calls, listening in while he's driving somewhere. Like he's in the headquarters, showing up, knocking it out. All right. The next thing is what he's good at. He's really, really good at. Right. Like what I'm good at, I feel pretty confident, not like super humble. If you ever really, really get to know me, I don't talk about myself very much, but I know that I've put in a significant amount of blood, sweat, and tears to be able to reach a certain level of competency and proficiency. And because I've been in the online space, I don't need other people to tell me that. Like I understand what those 10,000 hours are, right? So he's really, really good at what he does. And things that would take me 3 days, it takes him like 3 hours, right? And that's 3 hours while he's doing other things. So it's like there's something to be said about that. And lastly, like he's a good person. And it's not often that you cross paths with genuinely good people that are also highly competent in what they do. And they are looking to go do something that helps other people as well, because a lot of times good people, they want to get whatever it is that they came for, and they want to go home, and you can come visit their home and enjoy being around good people in their home, but that's about it. But he's like, I want to make a much bigger impact, and on the way get everything that I was looking for as well. So again, like I don't need a lot of words. It's super, super simple. But when I saw the potential of us being able to kind of cover each other's weak points and come together and put things, out to the world that would be absolutely helpful. That's what got me really, really excited to lock in on that, man. So it's awesome stuff. And what I'm going to do, just for the sake of it all, I'm going to bring this one in for a close, man. Just a quick recap. The most isolated the most isolated entrepreneurs aren't the ones without people. They're the ones who have people who love them and still can't tell any of them what's really happening for various reasons. When it comes to, evaluating rooms, you've been evaluating rooms on content, curriculum, and a coach's name and maybe their notoriety, when you should have been evaluating on proximity and member quality overall. Proximity isn't just the leader, it's access to the people who actually got the results, who are further along in this thing than you are. If they won't respond to you, that tells you everything. All right. And you can have those conversations on sales calls, or you can ask those things before you get started, because any good program would happily answer those things if they haven't already done so in their FAQ section. You can trade one axis for the other, but you need to know which one you're trading and why. Right. The right community isn't a discussion group. It's an accountability engine with forcing mechanisms. You don't need more followers. You need one room with one person who can see what you can't see about yourself and can help you put things together in a way where you'll be able to move things forward with a much stronger trajectory than what you currently have. And just look at the story for what it is. 500 posts, one client. One relationship, 75,000, 15 clients. That's not a strategy. That's what happens when you stop building alone and you start building with people who not only want to see you succeed, but they are further along enough to be able to not just give you the playbook and say, go forth and do great things, but they can actually walk with you to the next level and whatever it is that you want to do. So, Ryan, go ahead and bring it home, man.
Yeah, if you've been carrying this alone, holding it in, not because you don't have people who care, but because you don't trust anyone to hear it without judging or worrying that they're going to tell you to stop, that's not a character flaw. That's a room problem. And the right room changes everything. We both lived it. So take the quiz. It takes 2 minutes. It's free. It'll show you where your biggest gaps are across the 10 life areas, including whether isolation is holding you back and more than you realize. The link for that is in the description. If you're ready to be in a room with people who actually get it, where you have proximity, accountability, and the people building alongside you that get on the Liftoff Lab waitlist, that's what we built this for. The link is in the description. Subscribe if you haven't done that. Hit the bell. We drop these episodes regularly. And in the next episode, we're talking about strategy and skills. And here's why we ranked it ninth out of it's ninth out of 10 on purpose. You don't lack skills, you lack deployment. We discovered that the business was already inside